One of the number one questions that I get asked on a regular basis is anything really to do with under eyes, eye creams, best concealer, best powder, how do I set my concealer, what do I do about this, what do I do about that? But there are so many questions, there's so much misinformation about what to use under your eyes, how to do your concealer, how to not hate the way your concealer looks under your eyes. If that's ever been you, and if you've ever asked me any of those questions, then this video is totally for you. And it's gonna be packed with all my tips, tricks, and techniques all in one video on how to not hate the way your concealer looks. So to stop hating the way your concealer looks, keep watching. In case you missed it, Volume 2 is officially back in stock. I'll have these brushes linked in the description box as well as on YouTube Shop. In no particular order, but number one, stop applying your foundation all the way up under your eyes and then layering your concealer on top. The reason why you want to avoid this is because foundation with concealer on top is going to just add a heaviness to your under eyes, and you want to avoid that. So if you ever looked in the mirror and thought, God, my under eyes look really cakey, there's just a lot of product and all that product is starting to crease, and I'm having a really difficult time setting my concealer because it's just not fully drying down. Well, here's why, and here's one of the reasons why that could be. It's because you're applying your foundation from forehead, cheek, nose, above the lip, everywhere, and you're also bringing it, maybe even just by habit, under your eyes. I really want you to stop bringing this under your eyes. Although it looks really nice, it actually looks really lovely, but trust me, when you start to pile on that concealer on top, what you're left with is too heavy an amount of product under your delicate eye area. So instead, when you are doing your foundation, let's say you make a little oopsie, you accidentally put this under your eyes and you shouldn't have, just go take a makeup wipe, a Q-tip, and remove very gently that excess foundation before you go in with your concealer. The less product you have under your eyes, the better. And if you're going to use multiple products like color corrector, moisturizer, concealer, and setting powder, you want to work in thin, light layers, gently and gradually building those layers up so you're not left with a heavy cake mess that you just need to throw in the oven and bake eventually. So number one, avoid foundation under the eyes. Keep the under eye areas strictly to your under eye concealer, and this will make a huge difference in the amount of setting powder that you have to use to lock it in and overall how it looks throughout the day. Okay, we've all been there, we've all done that. We've all made the mistake of thinking that we just need to buy a really good eye cream. We just need that one eye cream that's going to change our life. It's going to overhaul our under eyes. It's going to turn back the clock. It's going to depuff. It's going to eliminate my fine lines. It's going to make my under eyes look juicy and young and vibrant and not like I've ever had stress in my life ever. But we can't ever find that eye cream because guess what? That eye cream doesn't exist. What does exist is a whole bunch of eye creams on the market that are filled with marketing BS. Marketing BS, overpriced, inflated price tags that overpromise and underdeliver, and the results are just incredibly underwhelming. So then what do? You buy the next eye product that's marketed towards you online that's claiming to do this, that, and the other and change your entire life, but they never do. What will change your life and your appearance under your eyes is a couple simple steps, one that I swear by, and I've since seen a lot of people in my life utilize this technique, and I'm so happy to see that it's being used, and it's a game changer, and that is using a hydrating toner or milky toner under your eyes. Now, milky toners, I just want to call out, do work generally the best under the eyes because they're milky, they're creamy, the texture and the consistency just lends itself to being a perfect finish under your eyes and a perfect amount of hydration. Now, the great thing about milky toners as well is it will hydrate your skin, it will penetrate your skin, plumping up that top layer that's dehydrated where you're seeing those visible fine lines and wrinkles and or crow's feet. It's going to plump that up. It's also going to leave you with a slight bit of leftover moisturization, which sometimes is actually enough moisturization for most people unless you have more dry eyes, which we'll get to that in a bit. But let's say you have more normal under eyes. If you just did a milky toner and a light SPF on top, and then you went in with your concealer, your setting powder, you would be so good to go. So milky toners are a must, but you could also definitely do just a hydrating essence as well. One of my favorites is the Fresh Kombucha Facial Essence Treatment. This protects and visibly repairs. It also boosts luminosity, so it's really great under the eyes. This is a more watery consistency, which let me show you. So this one you want to pour into your hand, and then when you're working with a more watery texture like this one, I like to dip 2 or 3 fingers in and then just bring this under the eyes and very delicately move it back and forth, making sure this is fully penetrating my under eyes and really getting in there and visibly hydrating my under eyes. So there's a difference between moisturization and hydration. Hydration is that drink of water for your skin. your skin absorbs it instantly. And what it does is it drinks it up and it instantly plumps up your skin's texture. Moisturization is what comes after to lock in the hydration. So when people buy these thick, rich eye creams and eye balms, they're not getting the hydration first. They're getting a lot of moisture, but that moisture doesn't have anything to penetrate into, if that makes sense. It's the same idea as like applying your creams at night on top of damp skin. It allows better penetration. So you want to always apply your creams on top of damp or wet skin because it will absorb better and penetrate your skin even better. So when people are just slapping on these thick eye creams and they're wondering why their under eyes still don't look hydrated, they still don't look glowy and plumped up and juicy and young, and then their concealer is sitting just kind of dull on top and it's moving around, that's why. So this is the under eye once it's hydrated, the more watery essence from Fresh. And there's so many essences that I love that are watery like this one. This is just one of them that I love and I buy on repeat. And you can see it definitely boosted the luminosity under my eyes, giving me a nice light reflective quality. Now for demonstrative purposes, I'm going to show you one of my other favorite two milky toners on this eye. So one of the new ones that I am actually fully loving at this point, this is the Rhode Glazing Milk. This is a perfectly balanced milky toner. It's not too thick. It's not overly greasy. It sits incredibly well under makeup and it feels so nice under your eyes. So I'm going to demonstrate with this one, but I'm going to show you my good old faithful one more time as well. I know you see this one all the time on my channel. This is the thickest milky toner on the market, or at least that I've tried. It's the Prequel Half and Half. It's a peptide plus ceramide fluid moisturizer. So it's in between a milky toner and an actual like serum slash moisturizer. So the consistency is going to be a bit thicker. I'll show you. That is the thickest milky toner that I have ever tried. So just because it's thick doesn't mean it's not going to penetrate your under eyes. This is still going to be very hydrating. It's going to definitely absorb under your eyes, but this one will leave you with some leftover moisturization, which is great because if you use this one, you could probably get away with not putting anything else on top but a sunscreen and then going into your makeup. But now let me show you the Rhode Glazing Milk. You can see it's a lot thinner, but still milky. Same technique. I'm going to run my two fingers into the palm of my hand and just gently rub this back and forth. This is just a step that I would never recommend you skip. If you have dry under eyes, if your under eyes don't look young and fresh, if you have visible crow's feet, visible fine lines, if you hate the way your concealer looks, I promise you by incorporating one of these products as your first step, you will see a dramatic difference in the way your concealer sits, wears, overall looks, and feels throughout the day. So that's the Rhode Glazing Milk, and then the Fresh. Still bouncy, still vibrant, still giving me this like healthy, juicy glow under my eyes, and that's exactly the point. So 3 products, but this is a non-negotiable step to not hating your concealer. Okay, so once you've done your milky or your hydrating essence or toner, now you can move on to your next step. Okay, so your next step, I would still avoid, believe it or not, the heavy eye cream. Save the heavy eye cream for at night because you're not wearing concealer at night, so it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what it's moving around and creasing throughout your sleep. Instead, your next step to lock this in should be a hydrating serum or hydrating balm. I have 3 options that are amazing. So let's say you're going the balm route. Let's say you want even more hydration and you still want to be really, really thin, really lightweight. The Rock Multi-Corrector Revive and Glow Eye Balm with added vitamin C is such an easy and such a great product to use under your eyes. This will leave you with a really beautiful silky feeling under your eyes. So I'm going to put this right on top of the Fresh and just go back and forth. What I didn't show you is I warmed it up on my hand first really quick, so that way there was no dragging or tugging once it hits my under eyes. Up to you how much you want to put on. A couple swipes back and forth is usually all you need. Take your fingertip and then push it in under the eyes. You want to push this in with your fingertip because this is a slightly thicker consistency. And just like makeup, you want to blend it in. So that way it's not just sitting on top. You want to push this into the skin and tap it on. You can see it's added radiance. It's adding a light reflective quality. It's super lightweight, super thin. And I know this is an eye balm, but it's not a greasy eye balm that's going to cause your concealer to slip and slide throughout the day and cause creasing. So it's ideal for everyday use under makeup. The next 2 options, I have a new product that I'm testing out and really loving under my eyes. It's drugstore. And then the other one is just a more classic HA serum. So a hyaluronic acid serum is going to be your best friend in sealing in and doing that extra bit of hydration under your eyes prior to your sunscreen and then your concealers. So one of the HA serums I recommend is this Beauty Prep Hyaluronic Acid Serum. This is thin, lightweight, it's very silky. It just gets the job done really simply. So there are so many hyaluronic acid serums on the market. I could try to list a couple others in the description box, but this one is super hydrating and you need a tiny bit. This is from Jane Iredale. So even this is probably too much to be fully honest with you. So I'm going to share this on this finger. I like to use my middle finger and just push this under the eyes. Now, in theory, you'd be doing this step as you're doing your overall skincare routine. So after you put your essence or your toner all over your skin, including under the eyes, then you go in with your HA serum and bring it all over and make sure you're including this right under the eyes. So I like to really make sure I bring this right up to my lash line. So you might need to look up a bit for this to stretch the skin, allowing you to get right in there up close to your lashes, because this is where we have the most fine lines, is right up by our lash line. So don't just grab it and go like this and think that's good enough. That is not good enough. That's not going to solve the issue here. You need to bring it up as close as possible to your lash line. And I see this mistake constantly when people are rubbing eye creams, eye balms, whatever it is under their eyes. They're going in there, they're like, okay, it's on, but it's not on. And actually, you missed out on a huge portion of the under eyes that deeply need that hydration. So bring that up delicately, just like that. Once you've done that, push it in, let this absorb a bit, and then you can move on to your next and final step before concealer. But before we move on to that next step, I want to talk about this other product that I'm loving. This is a newer product from L'Oreal. It's the Revitalift Tripeptides Age Defying Serum. This one is a milkier version of this kind of serum. So either way, pick a serum of your choice. It doesn't have to be these two. I just think these are really great options for under the eyes. So this one's a bit more milky and a bit creamier than the Jane Iredale. So again, use the exact same technique, bring it all the way up to the lash line, tap it in, let it dry down, let it absorb somewhat, then move on to your sunscreen. Now the sunscreen can be totally of your choice. Just make sure if you're using a chemical sunscreen, that you're using one that's not going to be burning or irritating under your eyes. There are a lot of chemical sunscreens, even though I am a diehard chemical sunscreen fan over here. It's what I use 98.5% of the time in my skincare routine. However, there are some that have severely burned my under eyes, and I can't wear them or bring them anywhere close to around my eye area, or I'll be a mess. Sneezing, allergies, runny eyes, all day long, and my eyes will just be burning. So there are exceptions to this rule, but if you can find one that doesn't burn your eyes, go for that. Now, if that's not an option for you and you prefer mineral, make sure you're just using a thinner amount, because the more mineral sunscreen you put under your eyes, mineral sunscreens have a really hard time absorbing into the skin. They rather sit on top in a thicker, more greasy layer. So when you're putting that under your eyes and you're putting concealer on top, it could cause some major creasing, and it could be one of the reasons why you hate the way your concealer looks. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Look into your sunscreen. And if it is a really thick formula, I hate to tell you this, but make sure you're just not putting too much under your eyes, and or make sure you're letting it fully absorb and dry down before you move on to concealer. Okay, I know that was a mouthful, but let me move on to a sunscreen that I love. And I actually was just sent this one in PR and I just gasped. This is so cute. Thank you, Paula's Choice. I've been using a sunscreen for years. I've probably bought like 60 of these in my lifetime at this point. That's an exaggeration, but I've bought so many of this. I should have stock. The Paula's Choice Youth Extending Daily Hydrating Fluid. This is a broad spectrum SPF 50. This also has antioxidants in it, soothing plant extracts. This is a very lightweight chemical sunscreen that just sits so well under makeup, and not just on your entire face, but under your eyes as well. This sits so beautifully. So as your third and final step to prepping your under eye area so you don't hate the way your concealer looks, take your sunscreen, work it into your fingertips or on the top of your hand. I like just do my fingertips like this for sunscreen, and then sweep it underneath your lash line. Now again, do like a patch test first. Make sure that your sunscreen is not going to cause burning or irritation under your eyes, like I mentioned, because it's different for everyone. There have been times where I've talked to a couple of my friends and colleagues, and there's been a couple sunscreens that have burned their eyes, but not mine, and vice versa. So it's going to be different for everyone. So this one doesn't burn me personally, but use your own judgment. Do your research and do like a little patch test first to make sure that this is going to agree with your under eyes and it's not going to cause irritation. Now that is your final step in prepping your under eyes to perfection, so you don't hate your concealer when you put it on top. And my under eyes have never felt happier right now. Like literally they're beaming with joy. They're so happy. So now let's get into the nitty gritty, and we need to talk concealers, and there's so many great concealers on the market. Some might be great for you. Some might be horrible for you. And it's really important that you determine the right formula for you and your skin type. For example, if you have dry, mature under eyes, if Shape Tape from Tarte worked for you in 2015 and it looked stunning and you were able to slap that sucker on and blend it out with a big old beauty sponge and call it a day and maybe bake on top, but then flash forward to 10 years later, now all of a sudden that's making you look like the Crypt Keeper. I got you. With age, with time, we should be adapting, we should be evolving, we should be creating new makeup routines and new skincare routines that work well for the skin and the eyes and the body that we're in that moment, right? So what worked for me back in 2014, 15, and 16 was huge, massive amounts of concealer on my eyes. And my under eyes could take it. My under eyes can still take it to some extent, but are they going to look the best in person? Probably not. Are they going to look pretty dry, pretty crusty? Yeah, probably. So there are definitely things I've had to switch up. Now I'm the ripe age of 39, going on 40, and there's things I've had to change out in my routine. One is the amount of concealer that I can use. Two is the amount of powder I can use. And three was the skin prep that I used prior, which you just saw. Now, let's say you're someone who loved Shape Tape. You can't pry it from your hands. Like, you just don't want to give it up, but it's making your under eyes look crusty, dusty, and crypt keeper-like. If you still want to use that heavy, thick concealer, I just urge you to use different techniques to blend it out and use different amounts of that product. So this tip is for anyone who wants to use that thicker, more full coverage concealer. I got you. Utilize these tips to make it look soft, make it look not creasy, not heavy, and definitely not the crypt keeper. So this is my girl. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Concealer. This one is such a holy grail if you want full coverage that looks smooth, that looks flawless, and that lasts all day. Now the mistake would be, of course, going in and going like this. I know we rarely do this and we rarely see this because we've definitely learned a lot of lessons since this technique of like 2014 through 16. So instead, you would take that concealer, wipe off the excess so you don't have too much on your doe foot, and place it just where you need it, okay? Just where you need it. So right here, I have discoloration, I have visible dark circles, I have a lot of veins up close. If you were to see me like really close, I have a lot of veins right here. And I'm gonna avoid this area still, and here's why. We're gonna place it on either end where I have the most redness and the most discoloration. And then we're gonna meet in the middle. But what I want you to do is take a blending brush or a smaller brush. It could either be my N16 or my new N20S. Just the N16 brush, and this is gonna be a great tool to tap in the coverage, maintain the coverage, but also blend out and diffuse the edges so it's not super heavy. So what I want you to do first when you're applying this technique of concealer is take the brush, and I want you to use it in a flat angle. So you want to tap it into place where you need the maximum amount of coverage. So again, it's going to be different for everyone, but generally speaking, we need the most coverage in this inner corner and right here in this outer corner. And then what you're left with is an in-between that suddenly doesn't look that bad, okay? Because we've counteracted and we've color corrected and concealed a lot of the redness in this inner corner right here, instantly brightening this area, making us look more well-rested, less tired. And then we've also done the same thing in this outer corner, giving our eyes a very nice lift and a beautiful bright effect. And because we have this area and this area brightened, it really tricks the eye to not really paying attention to this area anymore. So suddenly we don't need all that concealer here. And by just placing it here and here, that could be just enough for you. So I want you to try this out. And again, it's gonna be different for everyone. You still might need more concealer than what I'm showing you right now. But if you've hated the way your concealer looks, chances are you're applying just way too much. So once we blend out these two worlds, okay, then you want to take whatever's left over on the brush, which is going to be a very small amount, and then you could kind of just blend the two worlds together just a little bit. And what I'm going to do right now is take the tip of the brush with the longer fibers and just scoop these two worlds together and create a thin, light veil of coverage straight across the lash line. It's just enough coverage to brighten this red area, but not so much product that's going to end up settling into fine lines, crow's feet, and wrinkles throughout the day and end up looking heavy and therefore making you hate the way your concealer looks. Now this side, although on camera, it's going to be like, holy smokes, flawless. And there's nothing wrong with this side. There really isn't. If your under eyes can handle it, if you're a full glam person out there, like I love a full glam. I use tons of concealer all the time. But this tip in particular is going to be for, again, anyone who's hating the way their concealer looks. So if you're using this much product and you end up hating the way it looks, you just need to reduce the amount that you're using. Okay, another reason why you could be hating the way your concealer looks is you're not setting it with the right powder. You're using a thick pressed powder that has too much pigment to it, and it's not meant to lock in your under eye concealer. Now, there's plenty of pressed powders that I do recommend and that I love for the under eye area specifically, and I'll get to those in a bit when I do this side. But on this side, you want to stay away from heavier powders that are too thick. Now, I've definitely shown you before this powder on the eyes, and it's going to look very flawless on camera, but trust me, during the day, natural light, face to face with someone, this is not the look, okay? So don't set your under eyes with the wrong powder and don't use a heavy, thick foundation powder. A lot of powders can be misleading with their marketing. They could be saying a lot of things on the front of the packaging. They could just be misleading and just overall confusing to distinguish if it's a setting powder, if it's a powder foundation. Sometimes they say both, or sometimes they just say too much where it's just confusing. So this is the Maybelline Superstay 24-hour hybrid powder foundation. So this is a hybrid product, meaning this is marketed as a powder foundation and a setting powder, which under your eyes, I guarantee you're not going to want to use this under your eyes. So I'm going to grab my N19 brush. I'm going to pick up a decent amount of this product. I'm just going to push this under my eyes. And again, it's going to look absolutely, positively flawless on camera. I'm looking at my monitor right now and I look airbrushed, okay? But if you are above the age of 30, you're gonna look like the Crypt Keeper with this, okay? This is the fast track to Crypt Keeperville. And if you don't want to go to Crypt Keeperville, then I strongly urge you to avoid doing this because you're going to hate the way it looks in person. Now instead, there's two pressed powders. One is a new recommendation. One's an old school recommendation that you've seen me use for years now. My favorite, my tried and true, if you're looking for a pressed, easy to use, easy to travel with, just kind of easy to throw on the go powder for under your eyes. The Kosas Cloud Set. They have a newer shade in Candy, which is a very, very, very pale pink. This is beautiful under the eyes. It's very, very feather lightweight. It's very airy. It doesn't feel heavy or Crypt Keeper-ish or too dry like the desert. It feels very, very soft. So instead of packing it on with my N19, if you're trying to go for a more youthful, like very soft, not overly done, not overly dry looking under eyes, you could take a smaller blending brush, this is the N20S, swirl into this powder, tap off the excess, start with a tapping motion to dry down the area, and then as you're done drying it down, use a sweeping motion to just blend out the edges. This is going to be great for very minimal under eye setting for anyone who has very, very, very dry under eyes and doesn't want to do a heavy loose powder or heavy powder in general, and you want to be just very soft and very airy. This is a great powder to use. And another option if you want extra brightening, I love the Fenty Beauty brightening powders. The shades Lavender and Rose Quartz are my favorites. This is Rose Quartz. The Rose Quartz is going to have a soft pink hue to it, but Lavender is really my favorite. Lavender has a beautiful lavender hue. Now, if you want a bit more of a brightening effect, you can switch to a more dense brush like the N19, but you don't have to pack on too much product. So even though this brush is a packer brush, it's meant to pack on coverage, whether it's with concealer or powder, doesn't mean you have to use that much. So I'm going to take a small amount. I'm going to take the N19, swipe into the Fenty powder, get a nice even amount on the brush, and you can use this to press under the eyes to lift and to brighten. So this under eye is going to look like the Sahara Desert, okay? It's going to look crusty, extremely dusty, and the Crypt Keeper would be proud.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
This under eye, heaven sent, hydrated, still has coverage, beautifully set, will wear beautifully all throughout the day. Is it budge proof? No. Only loose powders will give you a budge-proof under eye, but this pretty darn close. This should get you through the majority of your workday looking fresh, set, and ready to tackle. And the bonus, when you smile, yeah, your wrinkles are going to be there, but they're not going to be exaggerated by copious amounts of concealer and pressed powder. And just to throw it out there, makeup is not magic, so we do the best we can. That's all we can do. Makeup is not going to solve texture issues. It's going to be a band-aid, but you want to make sure that you're keeping a realistic expectation of what your under eyes can and cannot look like. So if you are above the age of 30, 35, 40, we do the best we can and we let the rest go. So don't be hard on yourself. If your under eyes still look a little dry, if you can still see your crow's feet and your wrinkles, guess what? That's fine. We're human, and this still looks so much more beautiful and so much more presentable and perfected than this eye. Okay, let's say you're at home, you applied this amount of coverage under your eyes and this amount of powder under your eyes, and you want a quick fix. Let's say you don't have the time to rework your entire face and to redo your under eye concealer and setting powder, and you need to leave and you need to get out the door. If you have a hydrating setting spray, a hydrating mist, that is going to solve so much of this issue, and it's going to help bring some life and some skin-like quality back to even the heaviest under eyes. Two sprays that are going to do a great job of bringing that life and that hydration back to even this kind of under eye is the One Size Powder Melt Glass Setting Spray. This is literally designed and marketed and formulated to melt away that super duper powdery, cakey makeup look, whether it's under your eyes or on your entire face. But another one that I love that came out before this one, or at least I tried this before the One Size, is the Dibs Love Beam Setting Spray. This is a setting spray. However, I think this one is super hydrating. It adds a beautiful glow and luminosity to even the heaviest makeup look. But for demonstrative purposes, I'm going to shake up the One Size Powder Melt. Give it a test spray. Tilt your head up, okay? That way you can get all this area. Tilt your head up. Close your eyes. Whew. And you see how that instantly took away a ton, like a good chunk of that heavy, over powdered, over product filled under eye. Now I don't use the setting spray all over my face because it's a nightmare for my oily skin, but if you need something in a pinch, if you need to take away that harsh, powdery look to your under eyes, this is a really great product to have on hand, even as a just in case. Okay, I'm going to remove this amount of concealer. We're going to start fresh. I'm going to show you a couple more reasons why you might hate your concealer. Okay, another probably very overlooked reason you could be hating your concealer is because you're using a shade that's too light and you're not color correcting prior. You're thinking, I have dark circles, I have dark under eye bags, I just need to brighten this area to make me look more alive. But guess what that ends up making you look like? For example, I'm going to be using the Fenty Beauty We're Even concealer. This is a great concealer, very moisturizing. It's the shade 170C, and this is actually a really great shade, but just for demonstrative purposes, it is pretty light on me. And normally when I use this shade, I would put a color corrector on prior, so it just allows a beautiful brightening effect where I don't see any visible gray peeking through, because that gray is usually a combination of your under eye concealer being too light and the discoloration under your eyes peeking through, creating this kind of gray cast that is not flattering. So Fenty Beauty on its own, I'm just going to tap this in with my N14, and it looks fine. It definitely looks fine, but it could look so much better. And you could still see my darkness popping through right here, making me still look a little tired, you know, like a little bit unfinished, right? Like there's something missing under my eyes, and it's that color corrector. So if you're someone who needs to color correct, don't skip this step. And it doesn't have to be a ton of color corrector. It doesn't even have to be a really dark orange or dark red one, depending on your skin tone and the depth of your skin. If you have very severe dark circles and you do have a deep, rich complexion, then doing a red color corrector is going to be the most beneficial. But it doesn't mean you have to go full on TikTok style where you do a huge stripe of it. Less is sometimes more when you're working with a true color corrector. And if you don't need a true color corrector like a red or an orange, and you just need something to help brighten and give you some level of color correction, I love the one from Cali Ray. This is the Hideaway Concealer. They make many different shades. I wear the shade Golden Hour. I'm going to place a little bit of Golden Hour on this eye first. So just a bit inner and outer corner where I have the excess redness. And we're going to tap this in with the N16, maintaining the coverage in this exact spot. I'm not really spreading it all over the place. I'm just tapping it in to lock it in and color correct the areas I have the most redness and discoloration. So again, that's different for everyone, but for me, it's the inner corner and outer corner right here. Now that's on, we're going to place the same Fenty Beauty concealer on top, same areas. Tap it in. And what this does is it allows a lighter / brightening concealer to actually do what it's supposed to do, which is lighten and brighten that area. So instead of having your dark circles or discoloration peeking through, ruining that brightening effect, you're actually going to get a true brightening effect. So it may seem underwhelming on camera. These are small tweaks that overall make a really big difference in your day-to-day life. So if you're face-to-face with someone, if you're looking at yourself in your rearview mirror, in your car, if you're looking at yourself at your desk, this is going to make a huge impact. Less on camera, more in person. Just trust me, if you ever hate the way your concealer looks throughout the day and you're trying to brighten your dark circles, don't skip out on color corrector and don't choose a concealer that's just too light. So without color corrector, see that darkness peeking through right here, and with so much better, so much more brightened, so much more balanced. Okay, so you have your foundation on, you're going to grab your liquid concealer, you're going to place it all over, and you're going to go in and blend it out right away, right? You think like that's what you do. You put something on, you blend it out, it looks good. Wrong. And this could be one of the reasons why you hate the way your concealer looks. I'm going to take my Dior Flash Perfect concealer and just place this all over, okay? And then I'm going to go in right away and we're going to blend this out because we think that's what we do. We take it, we blend out. You want to blend it in, right? So it doesn't look heavy. You want to blend it so it looks seamless. It looks like my skin. There's no visible separation of where it starts, where it stops. All those things make sense. But what you're doing, A, is probably dragging this way too harshly all across your eye. Your under eye is super delicate and you want to make sure you're treating it so. So don't drag the concealer with your brush back and forth and cause any extra wrinkles to happen because listen, age and time will do that for you. Don't even worry. So don't accelerate that by going like this aggressively trying to blend out your concealer. This is actually painful to do. And then what you're left with after all that blending, because you think I just gotta blend it out so it looks really natural, so it doesn't look like it's like heavy or cakey, but what you're left with is an underwhelming amount of coverage and needing and wanting even more coverage. So then you go back in, you apply even more concealer, and then what you're left with is a cakey mess, okay? So don't blend out your concealer right away. That is a huge, huge mistake that I see happen all the time. Instead, patience is a virtue. Take your concealer, apply it where you want it. You're gonna chill. You're gonna let this dry down for as long as you possibly can, but try to aim for drying it down 75 to 80, 85%. Trust me, the more you let it dry down within reason, the more coverage it will give you, the easier it will to blend out, and the less powder you need to actually set it in the end, which is the end goal. Because if you hate the way your concealer looks, most of the time it's because you hate the way the powder looks on top and you've had to use a lot of powder to set that under eye concealer to lock it into place. It's a vicious cycle and round we go. Where we're stopping, I don't even know. So let it chill. Do something else. Do your eye makeup if you can. Do your brows. Make your coffee. Pack your lunch for work. Put your body lotion on. Put your clothes on. Do your hair. There's so much more you could do in this amount of time to let this dry down. Read the news. Call your mom. Whatever it is you could do. Call your friend. Call Mitch. Call anyone. But just let it dry down and let it self-set. You have to let your concealer self-set in order to maintain the coverage, in order to avoid all those other things I just mentioned. So hold please. We're going to let this self-set for a good 2 minutes and then we'll be right back. All right, our under eyes have been chilling for a while. I'm going to grab my N19 brush and just tap this in. And the biggest takeaway from this tip is you're going to be left with the maximum amount of coverage using the least amount of product. And you're going to be able to blend this out really quick, really easily. And you're going to also maintain the most amount of control because you're blending out a self-set concealer and not something that is super wet. When your concealer is really, really wet, you have a hard time controlling where it goes when you're starting to blend it out. So to maintain the coverage and the control, and to allow you to use a lot less powder to lock this into place, let your concealer self-set and dry down, and I promise you, you'll never go back to the old way. Now, since nobody's perfect, and if you are, congratulations, but I'm not perfect, and I still make this mistake periodically where I still apply too much concealer and I don't listen to my own advice. It happens all the time when I'm in a hurry and I'm just not thinking. I'm just kind of going through the motions, and I'm not clearly thinking about all the steps that I should take in order to have a really beautiful concealer all throughout the day. So now, since we are human, let me show you a technique to remove the excess amount of concealer before you go in and set it into place. Because remember, once you set your under eye concealer, whatever it looked like prior to setting powder is how it's going to look all throughout the day. So if you're starting out with creases, if you're starting out with too much product settle into your fine lines, crow's feet, and wrinkles, and then you put powder on top, you just locked it in and you're going to be BFFs for the rest of the day. Now, there's 2 ways you can go about this. What you want to do is grab something that's small and precise, either my N21 brush you can use if it's clean, or a pointed Q-tip. The idea is you want to go in there and scoop out the excess concealer. Now, typically you want to scoop out the excess product that is settled into the lash line. So the fine lines around your lash line area are the ones that collect the most product. So just scooping it out very delicately with a brush, going to take that excess product out. Therefore, when you go on top with powder, you're not powdering an over concealed area. The other technique you can use if you have pointed Q-tips is just delicately drag it and pull out any excess product. This is a really great technique also if you happen to get too close to your lash line with your concealer, which is also something that I suggest you avoid if you can. Now, one more tip that you can utilize as well, in addition, if you still need it, or one or the other, is to take a brush like the N16, take the longer fibers, and again, just do one last delicate final blend, just using the longer fibers on the tip of the brush to scoop out the excess product, okay? Just like that. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to show you 2 loose setting powder options I love for under the eyes. I have so many favorites. Makeup by Mario is one of my favorites. I love the Kimchi Puff Puff Pass, but these 2 are some of my more holy grails that I use and recommend all the time. So I love these, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any of these recommendations. I'll link them all, including the Makeup by Mario and the Kimchi one, in the description box below. But 2 holy grails, one's drugstore, one is more higher end. You can't go wrong with the Huda Beauty Easy Bake powder. This is a gorgeous powder for under the eyes. This will leave you with the most flawless under eyes that will last all day long. So great for baking too. If you're a baker and you want that extra bright and extra snatched, extra flawless under eye, I love a good baking moment too, and this powder is phenomenal for that. And a drugstore holy grail for under the eyes that is also good for any skin type, any skin age, Huda Beauty as well, but less is more. And if you do have more dry, mature under eyes, I would actually suggest the Makeup by Mario instead. But back to the more universally friendly option that's at the drugstore, the L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection Powder will have your under eyes looking pristine all day long. So I'm gonna take my N19 brush, I'm gonna dip into the loose powder, okay? So now you wouldn't want to go in and take all that powder that we just placed on the brush. You wouldn't want to go in and just start to go to town with this powder under your eyes. Do not do this. This will cause you to hate the way your under eyes look. It will cause them to look overly powdered, overly dry. Instead, I want you to pre-blend this first. So take it into the palm of your hand, not the top of your hand. You want to create a little warm bowl, a little warm petri dish for your powder to sit in. And then you want to pre-blend and get an even layer of this powder into the bristles of the brush. And I want you to keep this in mind. If the brush has an even distribution of the product on it right now, that means it's going to apply evenly under your eyes and you won't be left with any patchiness, any dry spots. This is a great way to avoid those dry patches, those dry spots. It'll give you a perfectly even wash of powder every time. So take the brush and press. Don't drag, don't tug, don't buff back and forth. Just press. That's it. That's all you have to do. Now you're going to notice too, I'm going to avoid that center that I left out initially because you don't need to powder this area right here, okay? Leave this area for the Crypt Keeper. You don't need it. Just avoid it. It doesn't need to be set. We have very, very, very minimal product right here. It's just this area and this area where we have the majority of the concealer that you want to lock into place. This, my friends, will always look good. I promise you. So if you've ever hated your under eye concealer after you've set it, you're probably using too much powder. You're probably not pre-blending it and you're probably not using the right powder. Now I'm going to leave this perfectly done side. I'm not going to remove this one. We're done with this under eye. And instead, I want to show you another reason why you could be hating your under eye concealer if you have dry, mature skin, or if you just don't need that much coverage and you want to be really, really natural, then I got you. For my natural makeup wearers out there, for the people that just want and just need maybe a really small, really natural amount of concealer. You don't need this much coverage. You don't have that much concern. You don't have dark circles. You don't need a ton of coverage on your eyes. Long story short, you just want a soft, very thin, very natural amount of coverage, and you want it to feel virtually weightless and look completely flawless and natural. So if that sounds like you and you have dry under eyes, dry mature under eyes, or just mature under eyes and you want a very, very natural amount of coverage, this is the technique I want you to use so you stop hating your concealer. Take a fluffy brush. This is the N20S. Any fluffy brush around this size and this density is going to work great. Take your concealer of choice on the top of your hand. This is an old school makeup technique and an old school trick. It's been around for a very long time. But you want to prep the brush and you want to basically soak up the concealer and pre-blend it in a circular motion with the brush. And you want to get this nice and primed. And essentially what you're doing is getting all of the blending out of the way. So what you should be left with is a brush that looks something like this. There's not chunks of concealer on top of it. There's not gunky concealer. There's not too much concealer. The concealer is evenly distributed all throughout the bristles. And then once you have this step down, you're going to take this and use really small, delicate circular motions. Now, this is not going to look that great on me because I have a lot of redness under my eyes and I need more coverage. But for anyone seeking this amount of coverage and that just wants a really soft, natural amount of concealer that doesn't look heavy or cakey, this is the technique for you. So just small, very delicate circular motions. And then from here, we're going to just bring a very delicate wash across the eye till we get to this outer corner. Once we get to the outer corner, I'm going to pick up a little bit more concealer and use the same technique. This technique is not for everyone. This is for anyone who wants that really soft, natural look to their under eye concealer, mature skin or not. If that's the look you're going for, this is going to be the technique you want to utilize. Now, once that's blended out, you can take the edges and just blend out the edges. Now, once you've done this step, the joy of this is this will take minimal to no powder sometimes, depending on like the formulation of concealer that you're using. This concealer I do recommend setting somewhat because it is more of a watery, wet texture. Now let me show you how to set this concealer so it doesn't add a heavy layer to it and it doesn't ruin this natural, beautiful finish that we just created. So same brush, I'm just going to do a little bit of dry cleaning. I'm just going to run this back and forth on a paper towel. I'm going to pick up a really small amount of the Fenty Beauty brightening powder. So I'm going to pick that up on the same N20S. This powder is ultra fine, ultra soft, ultra natural. A little bit goes a long way. So if you want a really, really natural effect, just pick up a small amount. You could tap out the excess too, just to make sure you don't have too much product on your brush. And then from here, I still suggest you do a tapping motion. And once you've dried down majority of the area, then you could go in with small, delicate buffing techniques. light touch, don't apply too much pressure, and that should be all you need to set the under eye into place. So these are my tips for the most natural under eye concealer and powder. So if you hate concealer, you hate the way powder looks on your eyes, you hate the way anything looks on your eyes, but you still want some coverage, try this technique. I promise you it'll change the game. And those are my tips on how to stop hating the way your under eye concealer looks. If any of you have reached out in the comments below and asked me for more tips on how to stop hating your concealer, this video was for you. I hope you found all these tips helpful. Try one of them, try all of them, try any of the ones you think will work best for you. And if you happen to miss my video I posted about 3 months ago on how to stop hating your foundation, I highly recommend you check that one out next. I'll have it linked either here or down below in the description box for you to watch. It is super helpful, just like this one. So next time you find yourself hating the way your under eye concealer looks, try any of these techniques. Try one of them, try 2 of them. At least, at the very, very least, try prepping your under eyes with some hydrating or milky toners. And I promise you, you will never go back to your old ways. Leave me a comment below and let me know which one of these techniques helped you out the most. And I am so excited for you to stop hating the way your under eye concealer looks and feels throughout the day. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.